Hello, and welcome to another edition of Blether with Barberra. And today I have a very special guest all the way from the States, a wonderful individual called Paul Lagerstedt. Correct me if I've got that pronunciation right or wrong,
That's
please.
perfect. You got it.
Fantastic. And Paul is the founder of Alka, but also Paul has got a history before Alka and the reasons why he created Alka, his business, and the products that Alka creates and etc. But what I do with all my guests is I do like to allow them to introduce themselves because they can give a better bio of themselves, who they are, how they got to where they got to, and where we're at the moment. And then what I'll do, as I'd always do, is we'll get into some questions and answers if that's all right, Paul. So over to you.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Brian. I never really set out in life to be part of the alcohol community, right? I started off my life as a diesel mechanic. So the first couple years, 5 to 8 years, I did diesel, and then I was just a sales guy, right? So a dad, not a scientist, not a doctor, not anybody, no sports stars or anything here. Just a guy. I suppose you could just say just a normal guy trying to make it through life, be happy and healthy, and not waste any days, right? But as I was going through life, Brian, I really enjoy alcohol in moderation. And I put moderation, with a footnote or an asterisk, because that can be different for a lot of people. And I know you and me and my family and probably your family has probably a deep history with alcohol, and it can be very polarizing, right? And
Sure.
again, I never thought I would be in this category, but I am. And it's a weird one because we try to make alcohol enjoyable again, in the fact that we try to allow people to enjoy alcohol without paying what I call the alcohol tax.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm speaking to a lot of people, whether you just want to enjoy a beer at the pub, a dram of scotch, or a glass of red wine at a wedding. Most of us, when we have alcohol, we end up paying for it in some way. And it could be very simple. It could just be an annoying flush in the face. It could be maybe a body ache or some congestion. And then it can get into nausea and headaches, tension headaches, migraines, poor sleep, and then that dreaded next morning. What we call it's called a hangover, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's very common, but that has a bad connotation, because if somebody says, "Hey, I woke up with a hangover," most of us assume that you just drank too much, right? Like you have a problem, you drank too much. But hangover is just kind of the catch-all word for what we kind of call general malaise, right? You wake up on a Monday after having a couple beers on a Sunday, and you just feel off, right? You can still go to work, you can still function, but you just don't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of my story is that I found myself there for decades, and one day I got mad and I wanted to fix it. And that's kind of where the diesel, where the mechanic part comes in, of like, hey, there's a problem. Let's fix this problem. What's the problem? So, but this wasn't just a truck that wouldn't start, or a battery that was dead. This was is a little bit deeper than that. But I think my mechanic background, and I wasn't a brilliant mechanic, Brian. I was just your run of the mill mechanic, right? I wasn't anybody special, but it was, what I learned in the shop was things break, and that's okay. There's ways to fix them. And sometimes you need to think laterally. It's, for instance, I don't know if you're mechanical at all, but for instance, if you go out to start your car and it doesn't start, it could be a dead battery. And the battery could be fine. It's just dead, right? So it could be an alternator. It could be a starter, right? The starter could be bad, or it could just be a stuck starter. So, or it could be the starter cylinder. So there's, half a dozen reasons why it wouldn't start. And so this journey with Alka kind of started that way. I would drink wine, I would feel awful. I would have a beer, I would feel awful. And wine would affect me different than a Belgian beer. A Belgian beer would affect me different than a Lefroy or an Ardbeg, right? And if I mixed any of those two in the night, like if I started with a beer and ended with a scotch, game out, like it would just destroy me. So I treated it like that, and that's what got me started on Alka.
Well, do you know, and that is, well, thank you Thanks for introducing yourself. And yeah, I am very sort of logically minded myself. I do try to fix. And we're sort of similar in a way. So I'm dairy intolerant, and I only found out 10 years ago, 11, 12 years ago. So I don't eat any dairy at all because I can't tolerate any of it at all, which is such a shame because I do like chocolate and cheese. But I spent all those years before I'm figuring, why am I like this? And even though the doctors and going back, so doctors replaced with mechanics trying to fix a broken engine, and the doctors going through the process of elimination. And eventually, obviously, the blood test. Oh, right, you can't do that. So very much, I would love to be able to invent a medicine that allows people who are dairy intolerant to have dairy, because the vegan cheeses are not great.
Oh, they're awful.
Some of them are really nice, I must admit, the expensive ones, but the normal standard supermarket ones are not great.
But forget, like, game over, right? It's just, not worth it.
I think your way of thinking is the way I think. And I think a lot of our viewers will think like this. We do like, hence the reason I do the podcast, because it's a different approach to a health issue that you're suffering with. As you mentioned, you had the health issues. And I get that, because there is a saying where whiskey makes me frisky and brandy makes me randy. And that might be an English thing. I don't know if you've ever read it in America, but it's definitely a saying. And it is to do with the fact that some people will say, oh, I can't touch brandy because I get really ill when I have brandy. But I can have gin. I'm very much that person. If I drink, I can't have anything dark. I love dark ale. I love a stout. I used to love drinking stouts and bitter, but I've had to stop because I get a terrible heartburn as soon as I start drinking, and I get ill. And I feel ill. I feel heavy and I feel achy. So ultimately, when I get round to utilising what you've sent me in the post, I'll be trying out your samples.
Nice.
And I've got them here. So obviously, I think you'll see them.
I'm excited for you.
And I want to see, just because I do like a drink in moderation, just like you say, because ultimately, it's not a bad thing, but it's polarizing. It is polarizing, and it can affect people in different ways. And obviously, just as a sort of disclaimer, we're not promoting alcohol use. What we're here is to discuss the fact that alcohol can cause unnecessary side effects because of additives and nitrates and other bits that they put in there to make it the way it is.
That's what makes it alcohol.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So the hidden cost of drinking and what's really in your glass is what we're here to talk about. So bearing in mind, obviously, your mission, Paul, alcohol has been a part of human culture for thousands of years. In your view, what has changed about the way we drink today, and why do you think so many people are questioning their relationship with alcohol? Which there is a dramatic change, particularly in this country. I don't know if it's the same in America, but polls for younger generations, we're talking under 30s, dramatically swaying away from alcohol use at the moment.
Yeah.
And we haven't got the same figures as we did when I was a kid and I was a sort of young man, you know? So that's the question, really. In your view, what has changed on the way we drink today?
I think the wellness in general is a category now, right? I'm 50. I'm 51, so I'm Gen X, and alcohol was just part of culture. Not that it isn't now, but the newer generation, I don't think they don't want to put up with feeling awful. It's not worth it, right? And with social media now, where your life is on display, people are either stopping drinking altogether, or they're really slowing down and doing maybe an alcoholic drink every once in a while, but then really getting into the non-alcoholic drink. And then there's other things besides alcohol now too that people can escape with, right? With the marijuana, the THC, and the gummies.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've never really, I've never explored. You know, growing up, it was all around, and I just never wanted anything to do with it. But I think people are just mindful of their wellness, and that was me too. I was like, nothing that I eat or drink affects me as much as a glass of red wine. But nothing that I eat or drink makes me feel as good as a glass of red wine.
Yes.
Or a dram of scotch, right? Yes. Like, there's something about alcohol it's been part of our for, let's just say, 6,000 years.
Yes.
Right? the Egyptians and the Chinese, like there's something about alcohol, but it's also been written about for 6,000 years about, right? You've got the benefits of it. I mean, there's even scriptures in the Bible about the benefits of alcohol. And there's also the other side too of, the sting, right? Alcohol can sting you.
Yeah.
And then there's the red wine headaches that authors in antiquity have written about for thousands of years. So
Correct.
I think that nowadays, as our generation gets a little bit older, alcohol affects us differently than it did when we were in our 20s or even 30s. I used to be able to have a couple beers and it didn't affect me in a negative way, right? There was the intolerance wasn't an issue. Nowadays, people are concerned about their wellness. And if I drink on a Friday night, if it ruins my whole Saturday, I'm not willing to give that up for a couple drinks. So I think people are just more mindful of what they're doing and how it makes them feel. And so that's the interesting thing about Alka, is that it's changed my relationship with alcohol. And it's kind of hard to explain, because until you try it for a little while, and by a little while, I mean, like it took me quite some time to be like, oh, wow, I can actually enjoy alcohol, I think, the way it was intended.
Yes.
Right.
Rather than as we, as a modern society, have adapted it to become.
Exactly. And one of my good friends, who was one of my test subjects at the very beginning, because and we can get into the nerdy part and the fun part of developing and inventing Alka, but it was probably a year into it. And he's like, Paul, I figured it out. He goes, I always paid the price for drinking. And he's not a heavy drinker, but he paid the price for it. And he goes, now I'm not paying that price. I can enjoy a couple glasses of wine or a beer or a whiskey or an old fashioned or a Manhattan